Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hi if you're new, and welcome to my April wrap up, where, do you know what? I don't feel like I did a lot of reading. What did I read? 10 books? Which isn't bad. It's not bad. I don't know why. I have really beat myself up about reading this month. I think I started off really strong and then just slowly plummeted into a reading slump, and now I'm actually struggling to pick up a book, which is great because after I film this video, I'm going to film my May TBR. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I started the month strong. I started with 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I really love this book. I really did. It was one of those books that I picked up and I thought, this is never going to meet the hype. And you know what? I binged it. I loved it so much. So here we join with Eva, who's a single mum and a writer. And then we have Shane, who is also a writer. It seems that they, well, I'm not going to give you spoilers, but they had a connection early on and then they drifted apart. And then they find themselves together again, and you see this gorgeous, passionate, blossoming romance. And I loved it because I love the characters individually. I didn't just love the romance building, I loved them as people and their family values and how they overcame issues that they had had. And it, you know, it was a really emotional read, but it was such a lovely read. I would highly, highly recommend this book. Okay, to me, yes, it met the hype. I was really pleased with it. Then I picked another book off my April TBR. Why am I struggling with months? It's the 1st of May today, and for some reason I'm struggling with months. And I read Old Toffer's Book of Consequential Dogs by Christopher Reid. This is a small poetry collection I got with some awesome illustrations in there. Can I find another one? And it was a chilled evening. I can't say the poems were amazing, but it was something a bit different. I don't read enough poetry. I would love to read more, and I love dogs, so I just thought this is a winner. And as I said, it was a good evening. It was fine. Then I really wanted to read the whole series on audiobook, but I didn't. I just read The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han, and this is basically teenage love, crushes, etc. And I remember I listened to this on audiobook while I worked from home when the builders were here, and it was fine. I think it's one of those, you know, when you go back and you read YA as an adult, there are some books that you really, really get into, and then there's other books that you think, if I'd have read that as a teenager, I really would have appreciated it. I think that's where I'm at with this. I think if I'd have read this sort of early teens, like tweens almost, I really would have loved it. Now I'm just like, yeah, it was an okay couple of hours listening to the audiobook. It was fine. I will continue the series because they're quite short. It's, you know, it's a summer romance. It's fine. So yeah, so we started off strong and then we slowly started dipping, didn't we? Then I finally finished this self-help book that I had been reading possibly a year, and this is The Year of No Nonsense by Meredith Atwood. How to Get Over Yourself and On With Your Life. And now there is nothing wrong with this book. It's a fine self-help book. It's absolutely fine. I don't know why it took me so long. I have no reasonable excuse for it taking so long, because it was fine. It was basically get over all these obstacles that you put in your own way. You know, like, oh, I'd really love to do this, but it's eliminating that but and getting to the root of it and working out what's stopping you and cutting out the nonsense. So it was really good. There were passages that I really connected with, some that I didn't. I think that's the same with most self-help books. They don't tend to work for you all completely. But yeah, it was fine. Then I read Promises We Meant to Keep by Monica Murphy. Now I think this is book 3. Fairly sure it's book 3 in the Lancaster Prep series. Now books 1 and 2, which were Things I Wanted to Say But Never Did and A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime, was just a sex fest, I'll be honest with you. Every page they were talking about sex, having sex, thinking about sex, and I assumed this book was going to be the same. And you know what, it really wasn't. Obviously there were quite spicy scenes in there. I'm not saying for a minute that wasn't cut, but there was a lot of going through emotional drama, abuse, and relationship building rather than the whole woohoo, let's have sex. And I like that. I like that. You had two very vulnerable people that have both been hurt in their own ways in the past, but just fit together, and they're trying to work out how to do that. And I like this book, like I've liked the other two, but just for a different reason. So yeah, it was fine. Then do you know what? I did read a self-help book that I love, and I've already read this book before, and this is Work Clean by Dan Charnas. The life-changing power of mise en place to organise your life, work and mind. I would recommend this book to everyone, and I have done many times. So this basically is focused around chefs and their way of structuring and ordering the things that they have to do. Appreciate in a kitchen, it's very fast paced, a lot of pressure, hundreds of people potentially to cook for. You don't know what you're going to need when, so you've got to have your shit together. And this is basically telling you how to get those skills into your whole life, basically, and sort your life out. And this basically changed the way that I have done things at work when I read this the first time. You know, now sort of like when I get to work, I look at my to-do list for the day, which I will have written the night before. In fact, I have a weekly, a monthly and a miscellaneous to-do list at all times on my desk. And I read the night before, I think, what am I going to do tomorrow as a result of this book? And I sit down with the list in the morning, I'm like, right, what do I need out today? So if I'm having a finance day, I need to have my bank statements, my folder, my this, my that, whatever. And I prep my desk for that. So I'm not reaching for things, I'm not looking for things, everything is there in front of me. And this book stresses that importance. So if you are looking ever for a self-helpy sort of productivity boosting book, this is the book. This one. Right. Then I read Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This is kind of like a spin-off slash book alongside novella to Powerless that I read, was it last year? I think it was last year, which was kind of Hunger Game-esque with magic powers. And here we actually follow the main character's, Payden's, her friend Adina. And God, is this an emotional read? Oh my goodness. There's a romance blossoming in it, okay? It's not like a full romance smut fest. But you just get to see her friend, and while she's coping with her best friend being in the trials. And you know, it was a good read, it was an easy read. I enjoyed it, and I'm very excited for the rest of the series. Then, two more physical books. I read book 3 and 4 in the Never After series, and yes, I'm reading book 5. These are, they're not called retellings of Disney's, but they are like reimaginings. So we've got The Wizard of Oz, and then we have Aladdin. And basically you'll have things like the characters, their names are similar, or there's places that are similar. But basically we're rooting for the villains in these, okay? In here, she gets with the equivalent of Jafar. In here, I'm not going to tell you because this just blew my mind. This was really quite interesting. I'd want to read now the actual book versions of like Wicked and The Wizard of Oz and just see like how this connects to the original story rather than the film. But I love me a villain. So I'm really enjoying the series. I have to say, up until book 5 that I'm reading at the moment, and I'm not overly loving, but these are really good. There's a lot of smut in them, I'll tell you that now. They are quite naughty in places. But that doesn't bother me. I liked it because they're all sort of like, oh, I don't know, I just love a bad villain. I love a villain. Anyway, one more book. We listened to an audiobook in the car on the way to work the other week, which was one of Doug Bradley's Spine Chiller compilations. And I skipped. I don't know why we listened to book 1 before earlier this year. I put on book 3. I should have put on volume 2, but I didn't. What can I say? But this had a few quirky ones in it. There was sort of The Raven from Edgar Allan Poe. And just, there were 4 or 5 other stories. The Monkey's Paw was in it. Sort of like, careful what you wish for type thing. And it was fine. So it was a bit of a mixed reading month. I had a couple of books that I really loved. A couple that were just not as good as I wanted them to be. But it was fine. But anyway, if you have read any of those books, let me know your thoughts if they're on TBR. let me know. I hope you enjoy them, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!